This week, I've got a film called Deep Water. It stars Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas, and it's billed as an erotic thriller, and there is nothing steamy, sexy, romantic at all, or thrilling about this film, so really just mislabeled there. You know, I always try and find something redeeming about every movie I watch, because I know work goes into making a film. I don't think anyone sets out to make a bad film, but my goodness, is this a bad film? I'm cutting right to the chase on this one because I wasted 2 hours of my life. I do not get them back. I want to spare everyone else that. I think it was more interesting following the paparazzi, tabloid storylines, etc., about Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck dating, because I think they started dating on this film. Obviously, Bennifer has rehappened, so that is no longer a thing, but they had more off-screen chemistry, it seemed like, in the still photos that were taken of them than happens in this entire movie. I think Ben Affleck had more chemistry with his Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups than he did with Ana de Armas in this film. You know, maybe off-screen they were fine, but my God, it's just, they play a married couple who I think are separated at this point. And by the way, I'd like to point out that this is based on a novel by Patricia Highsmith, who wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley. And one of the writers of this film is Sam Levinson, who is the creator of Euphoria. So it's got relatively talented people involved. You know, it's directed by Adrian Lyne, who did Flashdance and 9.5 Weeks and Fatal Attraction and Jacob's Ladder and Indecent Proposal and Lolita and Unfaithful, all of which are, you know, questionable taste a lot of the times, but at least I feel like they were memorable. There was something memorable about all those films. This film will be remembered for being so bland and also making no sense whatsoever. It's just 2 hours of gibberish and it's so wasteful. You've also got some decent supporting cast people in here who I was like, what are you doing here? You've got Tracy Letts, who is an acting legend. You've got Lil Rel Howery, who's fine. I think he's fine. He's also a comedian and generally plays comedic roles. Doesn't seem to fit in here. Dash Mihok, Finn Wittrock. You got Jacob Elordi from Euphoria making an appearance briefly. And so anyway, Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck play a couple who are separated, let's say, and she is just flaunting cuckolding in his face. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know if you can be a cuckold if you're not in a relationship anymore, but she is flaunting men in front of him. He is seemingly cavalier about it, but maybe upset by it. And then, you know, just things unfold. But I hated this movie. I don't know how else to say it. I absolutely hated this movie. And I know she has a rabid fan base out there, and I would like to acknowledge, I think she is a good actress. It is actually very upsetting seeing this after seeing her in Bond, because she was such a refreshing, joyous energy. She brought a joyous energy to the last James Bond film. I was like, oh, she's such an on-screen delight. And then watching her in this is just such a brutal misuse of her talents. And then Ben Affleck, as I said, phoning it in. I cannot even begin to fathom. You know, I'm glad they all got a paycheck for this one, but it truly, and I guess that, you know, had a brief relationship out of it, which hopefully brought them joy in that moment. But aside from that, there are no redeeming qualities to this. It drags on. The plot makes no sense. There are just so many factors that I cannot even. And the other thing is, if it was so bad it was good, I'd totally be down, right? I'd be happy to watch that. I do love those types of movies. You know, the director, as I said, Adrian Lyne, has some of those in his filmography. This is not one of those films. This is just a steaming pile of garbage. It is technically streaming on Hulu. I hate being that blatant with my dislike for it, but it's just there's nothing redeeming about this entire film. The cinematography is whatever. You know, the production design is whatever. It's not bad. None of those things are bad, but all the parts together just are this cacophony of mediocre to bad that drags the whole piece down. So I am going to give this a 1 out of 5, and that might be being generous, but I think this is going to rank amongst the worst films I see this year, because there's no actual passion in any of it. And I think you need that for a film that's supposed to be an erotic thriller. Also, you need the plot to make sense. And yes, there are some vague motivations that might make sense, right? Like jealousy and all those things, but they're just so poorly executed that 1 out of 5 for me for Deep Water. The other thing I have this week is a very brief mention, but it's called Human Resources, and it's on Netflix, and it's from the people who did Big Mouth, which is a show I absolutely adore. I don't know if it's not embarrassing to admit that I love it. You know, it's crass, but I think it's also really strangely thoughtful and smart, and I don't think it's aimed at teenagers, but I do think it captures the teenage or preteen hormonal experience well, and then it, you know, exaggerates it to an extreme. Hopefully none of us actually had hormone monsters running around. But anyway, I really love Big Mouth. I do think also a lot of the themes it covers are things that are really mature and well executed. And so Human Resources is about the monsters and, you know, the hormone monsters, the depression kitties, I think they are, the creatures that rule that world and their sort of bureaucratic workplace and how they all function together and like the office politics. And there's some meta jokes about like, oh, we pitched it as Big Mouth plus The Office. And that's right. I haven't finished it yet. It's only 8 episodes. It's out now, but it has the same sort of tone as Big Mouth. So I think if you're a fan of Big Mouth, it's worth checking out Human Resources, and that's on Netflix.